You've connected to Cisco Unplugged.
Hello, everyone, and Happy New Year, and welcome to Cisco Unplugged here. I'm Dan Klamert, your host, and I hope everyone had a nice holiday break and had some nice relaxing time with family, friends over the holidays. Happy holidays again to everyone. And so for this week's episode, episode 48, we're going to be talking about the future of connectivity, AI-driven wireless digitization. And we are joined today with a special guest, Paliwal. How are you doing, Yogesh, today?
Um,
Thanks for coming.
Morning, Dan. Thank you, and Happy New Year to all you and all of your listeners. Very happy to be here. It's all good.
Yeah,
Thank
thank you
you
so
for
much for your
having me,
time.
opener.
Yeah, thank you. So before we get started, we just have a couple reminders. So we do use Slido for questions. So if you do have questions today during the show, you can scan the QR codes to join the Slido on the screen, or click the link below the YouTube stream that you are watching, and you can then submit any questions. And we typically then get those answered live on the show, or we have others standing by that are answering live questions as well. So just another reminder, we are recording this as usual, and we post all of that to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/@getunplugged. And if you go out there, subscribe, like, you'll be notified when we do go live with new great content like this episode. And just want to put another plug in for last week's episode, or last episode, I should say, episode 47, Wi-Fi 7, Anand. We had a great episode. We had some technical challenges with YouTube during the broadcast, but we did post the rest of that episode in, and that is available now out on youtube.com/getunplugged. So with that, let's get unplugged. So Yogesh, could you please introduce yourself a little bit more and tell us a little bit about your role at Cisco?
Sure. So my name is Yogesh Paliwal. I'm a long-time Cisco employee. I am one of the product leaders in Cisco wireless product team.
Yeah.
I am responsible for the core wireless technologies that we use in day to day. Also are responsible for the working with partner ecosystem to make sure it's just not about APs and Cisco wireless, but also the client and the ecosystem and how do we work together.
Nice. Yeah, thank you very much for joining us here today. So today's episode is going to be a little bit different. A lot of times we do a deep dive on technology. We're going to talk a little bit about, Yogesh, your thoughts around kind of the vision of where we're going from a product management perspective. So I guess, let's get started here. I don't know if you wanted to kick it off before I start asking some questions. Any specific things you wanted to touch on first here before we get going?
Well, thank you for having me in, like I said, in the first first episode of 2025. We are breaking some unplugged traditions, to say the least. I mean,
Yep.
we start this is a technology heavy podcast to start with, and I would say we are not breaking, but we are establishing some new norms. So we talk technology, but we also talk technology in terms of outcomes and what we are using this technology for and how it's changing going forward.
Yeah, good. Yeah, so I mean, you've been in product leadership, product management for some time, like you mentioned here. So, how does that look in Cisco and as far as wireless goes? How has that evolved? I know that we've gone through some changes here with our Catalyst, Meraki. So, how does that world look today, and maybe how did it evolve during your time here?
For sure. And I mean, we can talk about Cisco specifics, but we can also talk how industry has evolved around it,
Yes.
right? And then how
Yeah.
that Cisco has led that transformation. So if you look at last 25 years of journey, the whole ecosystem started with how do we, the turn of the century, it was about how do I get away from my desk, right? Like I was tethered to cable. So
Yes.
disconnecting and making something wireless work was cool. And that's where we all grew up, sort of trying to get away from wires and get mobility and get freedom to what we were doing as human users. over the year, networks have evolved from small scale to large scale, and it turned out how, look at the the SaaS and the mobile driven technology transformations that we had in last 25 years, right? So Cisco has sort of led that way with initial Aeronet and Catalyst offerings through controller. But we also, in 2005, there was a company called Meraki that got acquired by Cisco, which is, by the way, for record, before any public SaaS came out. Like AWS came out from Amazon in like 2007, 2008. So again, leading the cloud wave, and Cisco acquired Meraki in 2012. Since then, it has been about customers are trying to solve, some customers who are looking for on-prem, sophisticated feature richness, content or network management solutions with wireless in one way, and the other way has been more simple, nimble networks using cloud distributed. And we have led on both of those things. And then COVID happened, which taught us many things in many ways for all the technologies. And one of those was, hey, these two are not exclusive. It's together. Like people are looking for sophistication, but they are looking it for simplicity as well. So I would say we have been part of this journey, and Cisco has tried to solve in both ways. And after COVID, I think we are probably the only company on the planet that has the solutions that are mature in these domains. And it's about customers, how and fast they want to kind of move from one to another, or stay where they are, because it's not about what we are doing. It's about long-term marathon. I call it marathon, right? Like it's about customers that it's about 7 or 8 years of life cycle management and how the problems evolve during that period, and how Cisco or any other can vendor solve it. And I would say we are best placed to solve it. If I may, I also want to say that it's not as much about Cisco or me. It's about everyone in the ecosystem. It's the partners, the sellers, the end customers.
Yeah.
Because in last 25 years of journey and the device proliferation that we had, every one of you out there who's trying to solve, be the IT admin, the partner, the technology expert, you are superhero of your organization. I say this many times, that we don't get blamed for 99 things, or we don't get credit for 99 things that work.
Yes.
We get called out for that one client that doesn't work, who doesn't behave nicely. So it's like you are the geeky kid who've been getting 100 of 100. So every time you get 99, people are going to question you, hey, where is that one missing mark and what could you do? So on behalf of, I would say, Wi-Fi ecosystem, I would like to thank all of you, right? Like whoever are listening, all like you have done an amazing job. And don't worry about the 1% that you're missing. You get hear a lot about that because you are expected to get 100 out of 100.
Well, that's well said. I mean, it is, many of us have had and are in these thankless jobs where, to your point, I used to be on the customer side and run a network for a medium-sized school district. So I know exactly what you're talking about. Our customers, I'm sure, can relate as well, where you hear from people all the time and it's all about, hey, this doesn't work, or that doesn't work, or this is a big problem. I can't do my role or my job, or student learning is impacted or whatever. And it's just, and then when you fix it, or, the problem is solved, they disappear and you never hear from them until the next challenge or problem. So yeah, I mean, it's sometimes they give us thanks and, few and far between, it seems like, but, it's when you're not hearing from them, that's a good thing a lot of times where things are working. And, but you do hear a lot of the complaints about this, that, and the other thing when things aren't working. And yeah, the pat on the back. I appreciate you saying that to our listeners, because it is a thankless job. I've been there in the past, and it is nice to hear that. So appreciate that.
Right. The one thing I do want to add, and what's going to come in next 10 years or 15 years with wireless, is that so far, and we talk about digitization, but if you are getting 99 out of 100 and still getting complaint about one missing, I mean, look at this way. Now you will hear 5 nines, 99.999. You should work because the kind of problems that you're going to solve are that 1% missing. So the bar is going to get raised higher again. And for me and the team here at Cisco is about how do we make sure that you excel and kind of solve those problems and at the scale that digitization brings to us in the next few years.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And one other thing I wanted to go back and touch on too, real quick, is your comments about the acquisition of Meraki, the leader in cloud management, network management. And I still remember that. I was with Cisco at the time and how excited I was with that. And it's been really exciting to see, especially to your point of late. And, we talked about this on the last episode, is the integration between, now having when you're making a decision, a purchase decision, it's you have the flexibility to, it's now become a deployment decision, which route you want to go, whether you want to migrate to cloud or to, stay on-prem if you're on-prem or vice versa. You have that flexibility now with the latest APs. And we've made that migration previously, but it's truly one SKU, and it makes things a lot simpler for our customers, which, to your point, we appreciate when you're doing stuff like that, is making our lives easier.
Yeah, I mean, cloud in general, Meraki specific to Cisco, is about being empathetic to that customer and simplifying their operations using cloud, like before anybody else could, right? Before the AI buzzword started, and we'll talk about AI. But think of this way. I have seen many customers over the period of time, I'm sure you have too, where they start by saying, I have these strict policy requirements. I would want to go to cloud. I want to be able to monitor my network wherever I am in the world. But hey, I have to stay on-prem because my policies don't allow. Guess what? COVID flipped for many of those overnight. Like now the CIOs are saying, yeah, fine. Can you connect all my 10,000 people from home? Now, if you can't even access your infrastructure, how would you do that? Right? So we struggled through that. And one thing we realized, and I'm through customers and their feedback, is what constraint is true today may not be true 2 years from now. So then what is that we could do to make sure, one, we solve for problems that we know of, but then we can keep it open and flexible for enough so that they can make the choices at their own pace. Some of them will never move or cannot move because they have still those dependencies, either from a policy point of view or from a old sweating assets that they got that will take few years, right? So Cisco, at the place where we are, we cannot pull the plug. We had to be with customers and move at their own pace, while one vendor could just go and say, I'm not supporting you on-prem. That's not an option that we got.
Sure. Yeah, that's a great point. So I guess my next question would be around the customer landscape. How do you see it evolving, and specifically from, I guess, how are the product management teams looking at that, and how do they see that landscape evolve?
So let's think of this way, right? Like in terms of what right now we have most of the humans having laptops and iPads and phones and whatnot, and we have been solving their problems. To start with, we are solving for throughput at scale, connectivity, throughput, and all that. I want to say this not for on behalf of Wi-Fi industry in general, that wireless is not a bottleneck anymore in terms of throughput, right? Mm-hmm. We have, after 11x came out, Wi-Fi 6 and all of that, and with 6 gigahertz, it's not so much about scale. It's about, or throughput, it's about the new use cases, that the new the problems that bring in. It's about, can I guarantee latency or jitter or performance in unlicensed spectrum, right? Mm-hmm. Because like I said, throughput is not a concern anymore. So then there are some very, very interesting business evolution happening across industry. Most of the industries, if you see now in last 4 or 5 years, has been about how do I digitize it more, right? And what does digitization bring then? Like we talked about in last 20 plus years, we solved from human to machine, like how is my experience on iPad? And I was still in front of the screen to have discussion based on if the experience is not so good or could and use my intelligence to say what to do. But as we connect more machines and machines together, about that, too many pop-ups. Let me just miss them. All right. So too many, so machine to machine connections are coming up. Guess what? Like you are having robots on manufacturing floor. You have, healthcare operations being performed remotely and all that. There's a lot of machine to machine itself. Guess what? Machine doesn't have a discretion. That means we have to make sure they're always connected. They're always connected with security, because not all the machines are same from a software stack point of view. Some majority of those are headless devices, probably have only one function. They don't have any endpoint protection agent, which you typically see in any laptop or phone or whatnot, like any connector or anything like that. So their security profile could be different. So you want to connect them, but you want to connect them securely, right?
Yeah.
I talked about from a wireless point of view, latency, jitter, also roaming. If things move,
Yes.
you don't want to leave your robot hanging in the middle of the floor, because why are we doing it? We are doing it for efficiency. And if you do it for efficiency,
time is money in that regard. I mean, if if things stop.
Yeah, we talked about doing truck rolls and not ability to have truck rolls just for the human thing. You don't want to have humans going every time in the middle of the automation that you're doing in industry, right? So
yes,
just try to connect all of them wirelessly, because who wants to go to wire, right? That's such a 20th century solution. And then it's just not about being able to connect people, but it's also more about how you are contributing to the business, like line of business, and how are you improving business using the IT connectivity. One with connectivity, but also with intelligence that comes with connectivity and the operations of wireless that happens in all these offices and uncarpeted floors. So these are the primary things that are changing. One other thing that I see changing from a landscape point of view is, if you recall, till a few years back, we used to have wireless experts and switching experts and routing experts, and they used to have their own separate team. Guess what? As enterprises sort of scale it out, you don't have experts for everything. You have a network expert, so to speak, who should be doing all those things together, or himself. And just not networking, it's also security. Because if you're connecting machine to machine, and if the connection has to be secure, then the net and the sec operations also has to collapse to some extent.
Yeah.
Right.
That's great. Yeah. And just a couple things that stuck out to me there when you were talking about our manufacturing and our healthcare customers. I mean, and you talked a little bit about Wi-Fi and throughput, and it's really been exciting and great to see the latest standards focus a lot more on reliability with MLO and things like that we talked about last time. And even our pre-show discussion, I'll give our viewers a little bit behind the scenes view here, but we were talking a little bit about multi-AP MLO and coming down the road, and how that's going to look, and those types of things are exciting from the technology perspective to give us that not only the throughput but the reliability, which I think is key, and I know is key in those customers that you were talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. So if these are the business trends that are happening in the industry, what do we do for all of you out there who are trying to solve these problems on day-to-day operations? Is basically, I go back to you being the superhero to now you needing to be playing more than one role, right? You are expected to do all those things and go to the 5-9 as I was talking earlier, right?
Yeah.
So yes, you need wireless superpowers to be able to solve those problems, and we can definitely geek out, and we'll continue to do in further episodes of Unplugged, like what we did last time with Wi-Fi 7. I know previously we did curb and whatnot, right? But if I come back to the solving problems, it's about solving that roaming problem, solving those latency and jitter problems, right?
Yeah.
Now, like I said, we work with standards, we contribute to standards, and we try to solve it as much as we could. But if standards are lagging, then we kind of take that leader set and try to solve it with the closed ecosystem prior to even standards, to like the curb solution that we talked about, which was the roaming problem today. It doesn't for Wi-Fi standard, but we are hoping to get that into future Wi-Fi standards that's come out, right?
Yeah, that's one thing in my years here is Cisco's been great at innovating and not just participating in the standards organizations, but in many cases developing those standards. Being first to innovate, and then those eventually become standards.
Right. Other example I could give you, and we talk about, like, if you use cloud and AI, and if you see that wireless has the most structured layout in every office, every workspace out there, then in last few years, and specifically now since COVID, like the biggest thing that came on the COVID was, hey, can I get traceability reports of how many people were close to each other, and how do we, like, those are the sort of requirements came in. And guess what? When OT could, or the business could not solve it, fell back on IT to say, hey, can you give me some intelligence out of your network, because you know how those people and devices are connecting. And with that and beyond, like, we have created a platform with Cisco Spaces with the power of the cloud and AI, and now we are looking at that intelligence that comes out. How do we connect IT and OT together to power those business decisions?
Yeah, agreed. All right, so changing gears a little bit here, from a wireless context, let's talk a little bit about 6 gigahertz. What are your, I guess, thoughts on that? How you're seeing it being used? Brownfield, greenfield deployments, things along those lines, and the opportunity there.
All right. So I still want to talk about 6 gigahertz, but mostly in the context of outcomes and not technology. So forgive me.
Yeah.
We can look at that
no,
later.
That's good.
But
that's
think
good.
of this way. I think of, like, spectrum is the most precious resource in the world right now. You see there are political, like if somebody has given you 6 gigahertz, that means they trust you to solve the problems, right? Now, what does 6 gigahertz bring on table? It brings a lot many capabilities around security, what we could do, but it also frees us from the legacy things that did not work in last 25 years of experience.
Yeah, it's a clean slate.
It's a clean slate, right?
Yep.
So it's a scheduled traffic like you have in cellular world with OFDMA, but also it doesn't have a legacy security, for example, WPA2, WPA, like, which can be broken fast. So if you're trying to solve the problems around scheduling, which, like, go back to latency and jitter, because everything can be scheduled, right? So there are companies such as, one in Australia called, and I talk about it a lot, zero latency. Think of a VR experience, like all of us in here go in want to have a VR experience. In the past, they had these VR headsets, but to render the VR experience for the team, they had a wired cable and a backpack, right? Which is 8 kgs weight for them to be able to kind of render that graphic, which is not easy for everyone to participate in that experience. With the 6 gigahertz, now that company has taken it to the next stage. They work with us, and that wired connection from the headset to the backpack has gone into the backside. We have a Wi-Fi connection on the 6 gigahertz to the ceiling. That computer is in one place. Guess what? What does it do? It solves the connectivity problem, but more importantly, it gives them more business. Now they can have kids who cannot carry that weight, or elder people also enjoy the experience. So the TAM expands to big, right? This is one experience. The other one is a lot of automation happening in manufacturing floors and whatnot. And again, they want to have a predictability around latency and jitter. So they are solving those use cases using 6 gigahertz. So 6 gigahertz to me is a transformative opportunity, but we have to be intentional about it. Like, you have to identify your use cases that are critical, that are looking for those type of use cases, and solve for it.
Yeah, that's a great point. And there was a thought-provoking question that was asked, I believe, on the last episode, and it was around voice and, if we or others have seen changes with best practices, because 5 gigahertz is, I don't want to say it's overused, or it's definitely more contentious now, the 5 gigahertz spectrum, than it was when it was first released many years ago. But as far as believe it or not, people are still having phone conversations, but so maybe not as many, but so actual live conversations. But it was interesting, and I don't know if this is really a question, but it's just kind of a thought-provoking question to kind of consider. Is it'll be interesting to see how that plays out in the future with 6 gigahertz being a brand new spectrum and voice, and what the recommendations or what. And I don't know if you have anything to say on that, but or any
It's a
thoughts
great
on it. But
question. It's a great question. And I go back to saying Wi-Fi is unlicensed, right?
yes,
So as much as you as a network admin try to make sure that you are doing everything best practices, enabling, scheduling, getting the right thing. It's about the client that are coming in your ecosystem, right?
Yep.
And that's again comes back to us and saying, can I get visibility on what kind of clients profile I have? Because guess what? If you have a legacy client, few of them, not just all of them, and let's say you got all laptops and everything else refreshed to the latest generation. But if you got a client that is connecting legacy, and if it's chatty, no matter how much scheduling you try to do, it will throw off your plans. Right? So then goes back to, if you want to go scheduling, maybe those are the things that you move to 6 gigahertz. But more importantly, do you have the tools from us to say, hey, on this application, these are the clients that are using it. Out of these, these many are using Wi-Fi 6 and above and are using scheduling algorithms versus that's our chatty. How soon you get to the root cause of that and go to your ecosystem and say, while everything else is fine in terms of 80%, but these 2 clients have been too chatty. Either I try to solve for those clients, or I go to 6 gigahertz and make sure those clients are excluded. So these are the choices that folks will make in the field, but it's on us to kind of give those tools to them to be able to have visibility as soon as they can, and then take it to their ecosystem.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I had a couple more questions, but I wanted to keep us to roughly a half hour today. I know we've run long in the last few episodes, but so what are your thoughts on Wi-Fi 7? I know we talked a little bit about 6 gigahertz, and again, that's something that came in 6E. And so what are your thoughts on Wi-Fi 7 and kind of, what it brings to bear? I know we've discussed some of this a little bit already here, but just would like to hear that.
So with Wi-Fi 7, again, Wi-Fi 7 products can be built on 2.4 and 5, just 2 radios or 3 radios, right? That's more of a, how do you see your use cases and evolving and what do you want to use it for? But Wi-Fi 7 is an interesting, it's called, from a throughput point of view, it's called extremely high throughput standard. But the way I see that, the biggest feature is called multi-link operations.
Yeah.
And what it gives us is, in the history of Wi-Fi, this is for the first time when AP and client agree on more than one channel to talk to. Today's behavior is, if I connect to an AP, and if something goes wrong in the channel, the noise increases and whatnot, the client makes its own choice to roam to something else, and AP starts to change channel and whatnot. Guess what? This is the first time where you have an agreed second channel to talk to, right? So of course, you can use both the channels like lag to increase throughput, but more importantly, you can use it to improve the user experience and eliminate those unintentional roams that happen because of changes in your unlicensed spectrum, right? So to us, it's about improving the user experience. And again, going back to the client ecosystem is still evolving. How do we solve for, let's just say, optimize the number of unintentional roams that I have, but also optimize those performance parameters that we talked about, the jitter, the latency, everything else, and then transmit on the link that works best for you.
Yeah, the reliability is huge, and I had a chuckle internally when you mentioned the new standards name for Wi-Fi 7. I was gonna mention this to Anand on the last episode, as far as we're almost running out of adjectives or how to describe super. We're gonna have to come up with like super duper hyper fast for the next standards. It's like we continue to put descriptors in front of ways to say very fast as we come up with new Wi-Fi standards. So just kind of funny in that regard. But so we're almost out of time here, Yogesh. Anything else you'd like to kind of discuss or come up? I'll check if we have any questions here too, any other questions, but anything else you'd like to cover or discuss that we maybe missed?
Yeah, so I do want to say two things. One is, of course, we will work to we'll partner with all of you, the listeners here, and all of your teams, and to say what are those problems, how do we simplify the life for a wireless person out there. But like I said at the beginning, the role is now expanding to say you are the networking guy and you are the NetSec person, right? So then all these complex technologies that we have at the back end, which is not really easy for every day-to-day operator to kind of learn and expert, it's not humanly possible for one to know. Then how do we use the latest trends in AI, LLM, and whatnot, and with the power of the cloud to say, we will do the sophistication in wireless, we'll do it in the switching, we do it in security and everywhere, but you, the operator, should be able to talk to your management station in your own terms and like literally say your intent and say, hey, how do I do this, right?
Yeah.
So you're not becoming expert, but the system is helping you to kind of do your wireless security switching things while you may be expert at one and trying to learn all those other things. So that, to me, will free you up from learning and doing those mundane things and sort of evolve to solve these other triple line problems that we talked about. And I look forward to our continued partnership on what are those things that we need to solve and how me and our extended team can sort of help build those tools for you to solve those.
That's great. Yeah. All right. Thank you, Yogesh, for the great discussion here on the future connectivity and AI-driven wireless digitization. I had a lot of fun. This was great to have you on here. I appreciate your time. I don't have any other questions. So if our listeners do want to get a hold of you, typically we recommend people to reach out to their Cisco account team. They can get a hold of us at getunplugged@cisco.com via email if they want to and send any questions or catch up with us, and we can always reach out to Yogesh and get a hold of him if that's something you're looking to grab him. And then you can also send us messages via X, Twitter, Unplugged 80211, or on Threads at Unplugged Connectivity. So just a couple reminders there. Thanks again, Yogesh. Really appreciate your time. Thank you, everyone, and Happy New Year. Appreciate you watching. And again, a reminder, go out there, subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/getunplugged, @getunplugged. That will notify you then when we do go live with new episodes here. So until next time, stay connected and unplugged.